Welcome to day 3 of Soul Care for Nurses Week 2025. On day 1, we talked about energy, the energy of our life force, how different ancient systems talked about life force, from Ayurveda to prana, acupuncture with chi, vitalism with a vis medicatrix naturae. These energies were woven into the medical system. There was no mind-body separation, and there was an innate understanding that we had the capacity to heal ourselves. On day 2, we dove into the chakras and their different energetic functions. And we did a breathing exercise that helped to enliven, to raise the prana in our body, and to also make us more aware of the subtle energies of the chakras. On day 3, we're going to talk about acupressure points. So essentially, the meridians, the energy highways of our body, go through meridians. And we can access these energetic points through pressure in specific locations of our body. Now, I created this protocol primarily because I remember working a 12-hour shift on med-surg, and I was always running to get a call bell, trying to get pain medications, trying to make sure that the Q6 IV was coming right on time while I was trying to complete my chart. And I remember my head would spin during my shift and after my shift. I remember walking into my car at the end of the shift and after having clocked out and really just sitting in my car and just taking in the frenetic internal energy that I had. And it's so important that we're able to manage to integrate that frenetic energy that we can often feel after a stressful long day in the hospital or on shift, so that we can ground back into our body. And so today we're going to do a protocol that can help guide and ground you, give you more clarity that you can do even during shift. Okay, so let's talk about the meridians first. Now, there are meridians that are located all through the organ systems. And like I mentioned on day 1, essentially their function is to move chi, that universal life force energy. It also helps to move blood, nourish the yin. So the yin would be the equivalent of, say, the parasympathetic, and the yang would be considered the sympathetic, what helps engage and mobilize us. And as nurses, especially if you're a stressed, busy nurse, we're predominantly very yang driven, very sympathetic driven, and it serves us. What we need to do, though, is just like a car, downshift and actively work to raise the yin. So that's what some of these practices that we're going to be doing for the week help us to do. And from doing these practices, we can then be able to feel that life force in our body, to be able to reconnect to our spirit. So the first point I'm going to talk about is GV22. So essentially, it's where our crown chakra would be, but for acupressure purposes, it's really kind of at the height of our ears. And if we were to touch our hands, our fingers, it would be at the top of our head. And so that is an important energy point for helping with our focus, our concentration. The next point is really, I put these here primarily because we're constantly facing our computer, our Pyxis, and we're constantly leaning our neck forward. And these points are essentially points that can create a lot of tension, headaches. So I created this protocol primarily to address some of the energetic blockages that can occur from our posture. And also, when we're thinking a lot, we're sending the energy to our head and not really to our feet. And for good reason, right? We're constantly anticipating. We don't want to be sending our energy always to our feet because sometimes that can make us more foggy. We're not really on our game, especially if we're trying to save lives. So the point that I'm going to orient you to is really going to be where the occiput and base of the skull meet the neck. And these points can just help to relieve the tension. The next point is kidney 27, and it's located below the collarbone, right where the first rib meet, about an inch away from the midline of the sternum. And so this point can often be a point of tension, especially when we get tense. Usually what happens is the shoulders start to come up. And so it can feel like the muscles, especially the neck muscles, in the sternocleidomastoid will also attach here. So it can be a very tender point for a lot of people. Now, think about if we're in shock or we're in surprise, right? Usually, what happens is the breath, the energy can get caught here. And unless we're actively intentional, allowing our body to reset, to relax, to soften in that area, sometimes we don't even realize that we're quite tight there. The next point is going to be pericardium 6, and it's really kind of where the tan line of my Apple Watch would have been. Well, where the tan line of my Apple Watch is. So it's basically about 3 finger breadths from the wrist crease there. And it's between the two tendons that are there. We don't have to be as precise. With a needle, I have to be more precise, but with acupressure, you just give pressure to that area. And this last point is really to help kind of spread the energy. This is a great point for tension, for headaches, and really moving our energy around. So it's going to be located between our first and second finger and really at the webbing there. And so that is a point that I'll often do if I'm feeling stressed or if I've been using my hands a lot. This is a point that I will use too to kind of soften, especially we do a lot of work opening up the pill bottles, right? That can help to soften at least that area. And don't forget, you want to do onto the other side as well. Okay, now that I've given you a little bit of an orientation, I'm going to guide you through breathing practice, because remember, prana, chi, vital force really is through our breath and the food that we consume. So it's really important that as you're doing this, we bring forth that ujjayi quality breath that we learned about yesterday. That helps to raise vagus tone too. So I'll take you through the very first one. It's going to be again at the top of the head. But I invite you to drop into your body, whatever you were doing before this. Let's really allow ourself to land softly into this experience. So feeling your feet on the floor, unclenching your toes, feeling your body soften onto the chair if you're sitting. Allowing the breath to come in and out naturally, almost as if there were waves on the beach, just in and out. I invite you to allow your shoulders to relax down your back, almost as if you were wearing a cape. And just with that alone, it starts to lift the heart, to open up the collarbones, maybe lengthening the neck, and then softening the features of the face. Bring your focus and concentration to your breath. Start to constrict the vocal cords, almost as if you were trying to breathe fog onto a glass. And I invite you to take your two fingers and gently place them above your head, right where the crown would be. You don't have to press too hard in this area. In fact, it's almost as if you're pressing down just gently and then sending your breath to that area. I'll do two more breaths here. Then I invite you to take your two fingers and place it right underneath where the sternocleidomastoid and the trapezius are. There's a little bit of a depression in between there. And that's the point that often can get tense. Also, it's a point where if we're constantly making decisions, it can get quite tight. Again, apply pressure that feels good to you. You can even move your fingers around in circles. And then sending your breath there as you apply that gentle pressure. So it's almost as if your breath was meeting your fingertips. We'll do two more breaths here. Again, maintain that ujjayi quality. Then I invite you to take your thumbs, almost like as if you're cradling or putting on a ponytail, right in the middle of where the spine is, where the neck and the occiput meet. There's a little bit of a depression right midline. Almost allow your head to rest gently on the thumbs. You're just going to breathe there, breathing into that space. Okay, two more breaths. We're going to move to the kidney 27. So you're going to take your two fingers and place it gently below the collarbone, a little bit, an inch away from the midline of the sternum. And just breathe into that area. And just notice what is occurring for you. Maintaining that quality of breath. You're looking to enhance relaxation. Begin to lengthen the exhalation that is tied to parasympathetic. We'll take two more breaths here. Okay. And then we will bring our focus onto pericardium 6 right here. And this is a relaxation point. It's also really good for moving energy out of our hands, and it can be helpful in digestion too. Now, why I put this point is really again because most nurses are constantly on the computer. And if they're not on the computer, they're opening up pill bottles or they're punching medicines through, what do you call those um, packs? And so we're constantly using our hands. We don't really give a lot of care to our hands. We may give care in the form of manicures, but sometimes it's really good to just spend some intentional time working and moving the energy in our hands, right? We'll switch and do onto the other side. Again, breathing in. Remember, prana, chi, vital force. It is really through our breath. Bringing that conscious attention to that area. Take 2 more breaths here. Okay, and then we'll move on to large intestine 4. And this is overall really good for moving energy. Gently pressing, sending the breath there, relaxing the hand. And just noticing also what may be shifting in your body. Right. And then do onto the other side. Then when you're ready, just allow your hands to come to rest on your thighs or legs. And really just take in the energy and the space that you're in now. Enjoy the benefits of the self-care that you've done for yourself. Now, I invite you to do this practice as often as you can. It's really meant to support you, especially after a long shift. It's meant to support your head, your neck, your stress points, and then also your hands. So tomorrow we're going to be also again working with our chakras. We're going to be doing some more of these subtle energy exercises. So I hope you'll be able to tune in for that. And I hope you enjoyed today's session.